Hi, so I'm Virginia Hart, and with Art Risk Insurance, we're located in a little bit north of Los Angeles in a town called Valencia. We are licensed in all 50 states, so the fact that we're in LA is irrelevant. We can really work anywhere, so that doesn't matter. So today we're going to talk about insurance that you need for a journey. And I have like little handouts if anybody wants them. We'll hand them out to people. So part of every surrogate contract is going to mandate that you have certain coverages. And it is important to do so that you do not break your financial bank. As I said, and if anybody was in the other session about finances, it's wonderful to say I'm going to self-insure until there's a problem. So our goal is to make sure that financially you're protected, because ultimately what's going to happen is if you decide, which I know none of you ever would, but if a surrogate has no insurance, she's still the patient. So financially, those bills are going to go to her, and then she's going to end up suing you for breach of contract, and it's going to get really ugly. And so we never want that to happen. So we were trying to keep this as a happy, good process for everyone. So as I said earlier, the first thing that we take a look at is, does your surrogate have insurance, yes or no? If your surrogate has insurance, then we want to do an insurance verification to make sure that it's surrogate friendly and will cover what's her deductible, what's her out-of-pocket maximum, so you know and can plan financially what it is you're going to owe. If she doesn't have insurance, then we need to say, okay, how do we want to handle this? And there's a couple ways that you can handle it. One way is to do a transfer late October, early November, December, put a plan in place through the Affordable Care Act that goes into effect January 1, and you can only apply from November 1st to December 15th. Put it in place January 1 so that by the time she's ready to release to an OB, she has coverage. Problem with ACA is it's much smaller networks, plans are getting harder to find, and it truly is imploding, so I don't know what's going to happen next year. Every year is a new adventure with it, quite frankly. But that is one option. Another option is that you can purchase a plan that was created for surrogacy. And those kind of come, as I say, in two flavors. One is a full-blown plan, which will cover her from, prenatal, postnatal, delivery. And those run between $26,000 and $28,000, which I understand is not inexpensive. But we also don't care. It's not a calendar year deductible. It's not a calendar year. It's per maternity. And everyone always says, well, what happens if she has a miscarriage? We say, well, just try again. The plan will just keep rolling forward. So no harm, no foul. Just go again. The other thing we can do is we have specialty products that, for example, if you want to self-insure, then we have a plan that's called the reimbursement plan, which basically says you negotiate and pay all your own bills. But if the bills get out of hand, and the break on that plan honestly is $30,000. So if the bills are over $30,000, then you're going to activate this plan that you've purchased just in case. And to purchase the plan is right around $5,000. So you can get in for a lot less, pay your medical bills, which if they're normal bill should be $10,000 to $12,000 unless you're at Northwestern in Chicago or Sharp Mary Birch in California, and some other expensive hospitals. But you can manage the cost that way. So that's one thing you can do and still have the backup. So that's, the maternity is probably the biggest portion that you have to be concerned with. You can also get what we call a secondary or a backup plan, which truly is insurance on your insurance. So if your surrogate's plan has what I call hinky language, we think it should cover, but we're not really happy about a term or two in the language of her insurance contract, or you're concerned because she's got insurance through her employer, but what happens if halfway through the journey her employer changes insurance? So they had a plan that was surrogate friendly, and now they've switched to a plan that's not surrogate friendly. Now what do you do? Because you've got a surrogate who is 6 months pregnant. So that's when the insurance on your insurance would actually kick in and come into play. So we call those backup or secondary plans. So that's the kind of the maternity in a nutshell. Then on top of that, you're probably going to be asked to purchase life insurance for her. So if she were to perish during the journey or at childbirth, then you would have her beneficiaries would receive a lump sum amount. And it's typically $250,000, but surrogates can ask for more. The policies can also be written like $350,000, so you would get $100,000 or up to $100,000 to reimburse you for your expenses should she perish and take the baby with her. So for example, if she was in a car accident at 6 months, something like that. And this just actually happened 2 years ago where we had a surrogate die during childbirth and the baby made it. So the baby was fine and healthy. So the parents got the baby, didn't get the $100,000, but they didn't really care. And then the surrogate's family were paid their $250,000. So it doesn't happen very often, but they can die during childbirth. So you want to make sure that you've got that covered with life insurance. You also might want to think about getting egg donor or recipient insurance, especially if you're going to be saying, well, we're going to transfer in November and get an ACA plan, so we're fine. That covers complications for either the donor or the recipient from the start date of medication through the transfer process and any complication that would occur because of that. So that again, you're financially covered. And those are really cheap. They're like under, to do donor and recipients under $500. So it's really cheap, $250,000 worth of coverage, no deductible. So great insurance to have. So those are kind of like the tiers and what you need to look at. You also can look at short-term disability, which would cover her lost wages for the period of time that she wasn't working due to a complication, not just due to she's off because it's 6 weeks after birth before she goes. There has to be a complication. As part of the life insurance, you can also add, what do we call it? Basically, it's long-term disability. So if she is disabled due to the childbirth or the pregnancy for a period of up to 2 years, it gives her a lump sum. So you can give her up to $250,000. And then you also can add to that loss of reproductive organ, because your contract is also probably going to say that if she loses a uterus, a fallopian tube, an ovary, anything like that throughout the course of the process, that you owe her money. And usually it's $5,000 or $10,000. So we have a little policy that we add on to the life insurance that covers that loss. And that one's paid out like 3 or 4 times in the last year. So I don't know what that's about, but yeah. See, all these things you never think would happen. I never thought that would happen, So it's important to kind of think about the what ifs and make sure that you have the coverage to take care of the what ifs. Because if everything went perfectly, you would not need insurance. And then the question I always get asked is, well, do I get a refund? And I'm like, well, I didn't get a refund on my car insurance, and I was not in an accident last year. My house did not burn down. Thank God I live in California, but my house still did not burn down. But those are the things that you have to think about. So no, there's not a refund if they don't die, because we're just really happy they didn't die. So I guess that's your reward. So in a very fast nutshell, those are insurances that are important. And now I'd love to open it up for questions, comments, because I'm sure you have some. Yes?
How much of this is advised on by the surrogacy agency?
It depends on the agencies.
We don't know what may or may not happen.
Okay, so your contract's going to tell you a lot. And so agencies all have different philosophies. Like there's some agencies that think the ACA is the best thing since sliced bread and will never go away. I'm not. 3 years ago, it was the best thing since sliced bread. Not so much anymore, quite frankly. A lot of it depends on what you want. So if you're very particular, or your surrogate is very particular about a certain doctor or a certain hospital, then you have to be very careful about what insurance you pick. If she already has insurance, you have to make sure that it covers it. So a lot of it depends on the agency, and the more information you go in armed with, the better off you are. Yes?
5 minutes.
Oh, I have 5 minutes. Oh my gosh. So that's the better off you are, the more information you have going in. And your contract also is going to dictate that you have certain things. one thing I tell people, never put into a contract that, she has to use XYZ insurance, because what if XYZ insurance is no longer available? Now everybody's in breach, right? So you need to say, she will use an insurance supplied by her employer. If that insurance is not, and the attorneys are getting really smart about what to put in contracts because we've been educating them. So it's been helping. Okay, I have 3 minutes now. Questions?
So do you provide a service that's just the review and advice, and what's the cost of it?
Sure, so we do our insurance reviews, we charge $300. It's a 5 business day turnaround, so you get the answer very quick. It's in writing. We've probably done over 3,000 reviews at this point in time, and so far we have not been wrong. We're also pretty conservative, though, I will tell you that. I'm not going to put you out on a limb or me out on a limb. So we're pretty conservative.
Which agencies would you say are most aware or more comprehensive about this part of the journey?
I honestly think that most agencies at this point in time are pretty aware that this is pretty critical. There are some agencies that just do a better job than others, and I don't like to throw agencies under buses because they might be very different with you because different surrogate, different this, different that.
How do we determine which agency?
Ask them, how do you handle insurance? What do you do? Who do you work with? What broker do you use? Do you do it yourself? Who does your insurance reviews? If they say the surrogate called in, that's not a good answer. Okay? And, so yeah, that's what I mean. So come up with a list of questions because when you interview an agency, and insurance should be a pretty big part of that, as well as how do you screen there's a lot of it that goes into it. How do you screen your surrogates? What's your cost like? There's a lot of things. Yeah, but it is important because it can get very, very expensive. And if they call it wrong, if they say, oh yeah, we have the surrogate and her insurance is going to cover, and it doesn't, are they going to stand behind that? That's another good question to ask. So, yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, we're here all day, so stop by our booth, and I hope your eyes aren't totally glazed over. If you would like, we have a little brochure. Oh, one more quick thing. We have a new program that we're rolling out because we're trying to control the cost of this whole process, and it's called IVF Connect for Surrogacy, and it's a discounted IVF program. So the best example I can give is we took 2 clinics in Texas, up in the Dallas area, and one of them was in our network, one of them was not. The clinic that was in our network, and we priced apples to apples, so service to service, straight across the board, it was $10,000 less expensive than the clinic that was not in our network. So very significant savings can be had. And again, if you start, you saw the numbers. It's an expensive process, so anything that can be done to control those costs is important.